you won't get Boris out of your sight for quite a long time, I'm afraid, Stig.
So, the final day as Prime Minister for Boris Johnson. What should we make of his record in office? And is he planning or hoping for a comeback? Let's talk to Jonathan Marland, Lord Marland, former trade envoy and friend of Boris Johnson. Good morning to you, Jonathan.
Good morning to you.
Was he and one way of looking at this, that he had all these plans when he was elected with a huge mandate to try and deliver them. And he was perhaps very unlucky as a figure. He got COVID to deal with. And after COVID, he's had the war in Ukraine and the cost of living crisis. That's a pretty unlucky Prime Minister, whatever else people might say about him.
Yes, I think that's true. And of course, the problem with being Prime Minister is it's actually not about new policies, it's about crisis management. Every day is a crisis of varying size. And he's probably had the two biggest crises that any single Prime Minister has had. The inability of the Conservative government to get Brexit done. He did it, more or less. And then, of course, as you rightly say, Stig, he got into COVID crisis, day-to-day management of that, and his terrific effort of the vaccines. And what I think this showed, actually, is that the government system or the government unit was not functioning properly. And I think there's a lot to be left at the civil service doorstep in terms of support of the Prime Minister in these crises.
But would you actually also acknowledge that there is a universe in which he'd be a very good and successful Prime Minister, but ultimately, from a character point of view, he's not the right sort of person to have to deal with crisis management day in, day out. He's always been a good newsman. He was when he was mayor of London, and he had vision. And as you say, he got elected with a huge mandate to deal with Brexit. But ultimately, was he the wrong man at the wrong time, perhaps, when it comes to the challenges he faced in office?
No, I think he was the right man at the right time to deal with Brexit and to deal with the COVID crisis and the vaccine outcome. I think there is a very fair argument that he didn't have a strong enough cabinet that were able to make a lot of the decisions and do a lot of the day-to-day. He's a brilliant front man. I mean, he really is a brilliant front man. And he's got a phenomenal brain, mustn't forget that. But as you rightly say, there are some crises he, like us all, that then he wouldn't have been good at dealing with. And maybe he isn't good at the long strokes of government, which is this sort of continual crisis management.
In which case, what do you think is going to happen to him now, then, Jonathan Marland? Do you think that there's a shot? I mean, is the lesson from this actually, he's very good at getting elected, he's a very good front man, but actually he's not the right person to be in government, and that's the lesson he should learn. He should go off and earn pots of money in America, write books, wander around the place, perhaps being liked again, which I'm sure he does like to be liked, and maybe being Prime Minister is the wrong job for that. The lesson would be he's not really equipped for a comeback.
Well, I don't think he's ill-equipped for a comeback. I think you're right. As he said to me, he's got to put some hay in the loft, quote unquote, which to satisfy his ever-increasing family or families, and he's certainly going to set about that. He's never going to be out of the limelight, Stig. This is a remarkable person who everyone wants to know what he's up to. There will be pictures of Boris pushing a pram. There'll be pictures of Boris biking somewhere. There'll be pictures of him in shorts in wherever, because the media, love the Boris Johnson story. And he, in turn, has, despite, funny enough, being quite a shy man, has turned this into his great advantage in that he doesn't sort of shirk from the media. He plays with you and actually quite enjoys it. So I don't think Boris will leave our visibility for years. And because he is this extraordinary figure of great charisma, who has a sort of ability to reach people that others can't, that talks the language that they like, and has this flawed personality, which actually British people like. They like a flawed person. So you won't get Boris out of your sight for quite a long time, I'm afraid, Stig.
Well, I'm sure people will have a view on that either way, Jonathan. But it's an interesting point. I do like the metaphor of the hay in the loft as well. Jonathan Marland, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
That's Jonathan Marland there, Lord Marland, former trade envoy, friend of Boris Johnson. He needs to go and put some hay in the loft, Boris Johnson, apparently.